In my college days, I suffered from constant anxiety, and I felt like I was drowning in responsibilities. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kuba, and if you're new here, I'm a seasoned app developer with over 6 apps live on the App Store. And if you ever felt the weight of 1,000 deadlines on your shoulders, school, work, side projects, family, personal goals, this video is just for you. In 2024, I loaded my plate with more tasks than I could ever chew, from building multiple apps to juggling studies and everything else in between. And by the end, well, I was exhausted. And besides being exhausted, I was also burned out. But in 2025, I'm turning things around, and I'm sharing exactly how you and I can avoid crashing and burning in 2025. Let's go how it works. Here's the plan. I'm gonna walk you through a system that doesn't just keep you busy, it keeps you sane. We'll look at how I nearly spiraled out of controls while building apps such as Memorize, Bluesky, Coffee Note, Reflect, Escape, and even a totally new one which will come in Q2 of this year. Then we will see how I shifted my entire workflow to avoid repeating the same cycle of overload. I'll be covering 4 specific steps, with each one being more important than the previous one. So you will know how to structure your own workflow, prioritize projects, and still find breathing room. But be sure to watch until the very end. I've got one key insight that could make or break your entire plan for 2025. So let's jump in. The first step is the most crucial one, and surprisingly, the one most people gloss over, admitting there is simply too much going on your plate. But hang on, because after you acknowledge this fact, there is something else that might blindside you along the way. Look, I knew I was running on fumes when I was building apps such as Memorize, Bluesky, Reflect, all at the same time. I realized I had 0 free minutes in my day. Between all those coding sessions, my to-do list looked like an endless scroll. We often overestimate how much we can do in a single slot of time, and we're trying to be optimistic. And I was optimistic too. I thought I could just focus a little bit more and I could achieve everything I wanted. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. I was just spreading myself thinner and thinner with every time, until, well, I was too exhausted to do pretty much anything. Even Mark Manson in the Subtle Art talks about picking which problems you are willing to tackle. I was picking all of them at once, across many different projects. And believe me, when I'm saying this, it was really hard. But the first step, and the most crucial one, is admitting that you actually are overstimulated. You are actually overworking yourself. Only then comes the realization that the change must happen. So what I recommend you to do is to write out all tasks you currently have on your to-do list across many projects. Seeing them on paper compared to on a screen is really sobering, and the amount of time you spend on actually writing them down can really speak something to your mind. Step number 2 is to ask yourself, how do you feel after writing them down? Are you overwhelmed? Are you anxious? Are you maybe happy? Are you unsatisfied? All of those answers are correct, and based on those answers, you can move on to the third step. And that is realizing you need a change and you need a system of tackling goals. But when I tried to create such a system, I realized it's really hard to do it, because it's much harder to build a system that won't collapse than to actually go task by task and accomplish nothing. Building systems is hard. The system I built wasn't a quick fix. It required me to rethink everything. And here's the kicker, it actually took me a lot of time to build it. For me, the breaking point was when I realized even small tasks such as fixing bugs accumulated on my to-do. Bugs for Bluesky, new features for Memorize, design tweaks in Coffee Note. I was switching between them all so fast I couldn't stop. Enter my new system. The essence of it is choosing your highlight of the day, the one big thing you want to accomplish, and structure your day around it. So I decided Monday is Bluesky, Tuesday is Coffee Note, and Wednesday is Memorize. It sounds simple, but the hard part is actually sticking to it. Right? Because everyone can say, I'm gonna only focus on one app every day. But the reality is much more difficult, and it's really hard for you to focus only on one thing. So here comes the secret sauce that ties it up all together, and that is task batching. I covered this topic in the whole separate video, you can check it out here. But the essence of it is that I batch similar tasks into groups, and then I try to tackle them all together. And the benefits were huge, because I no longer had to change gears every 15 minutes or so. I could solely focus on one singular topic for 2 hours or 3 hours at most. So to sum it up together, identify the most important task or highlight of the day and tackle it the first thing in the morning. The second step is to actually batch your tasks. And the third step is actually understand that the system might change and you won't be perfect. right? Because every system needs iterations. But when it comes to refining, there is a key realization that shaped how I prioritize every single task that goes into my to-do list. Now that I had a basic system, I realized something else. I couldn't do it all. That forced me to get ruthless about priority. But you will never believe me how I actually choose topics that I really want to pursue and which one goes to abandoned list. I had massive backlogs across all my apps, but the key realization was to choose at most 3 or 4 bugs from each app max. Even if it feels like I'm underperforming, ensuring I do smaller amount of tasks ensures I'm actually making progress without destroying my sanity. But the biggest mental shift was that when I realized that the backlog will always be there. Even if I knock off everything on my to-do list, new tasks will pop out on each place. And you know, that's just life. The real trick is deciding what's urgent and what actually can wait for a little while longer. So what I would do, categorize tasks between nice to have and must do. Then limit yourself to a manageable list of tasks for each quarter. This will make you accountable and maintain your productivity all year long. And lastly, remember that the priority list isn't static and it can be revisited every single month or every single quarter. You can add task, delete task, update the list. But if you think that's the key to actually win 2025, wait until you hear about my less is more philosophy for 2025. After all that scrambling, I concluded that less is indeed more. But here is a twist. It's not just about doing fewer things, it's about doing them better. And that shift alone made a huge difference. In 2025, I actively chose to maintain only 3 apps. Memorize, Coffee Note and Bookie, and also commit to building one new extra app in Q2. That's it, no more bouncing around 6 different apps, building new features, building unreleased apps, and all of that jazz. The old me would have called it underachieving, but right now I feel like it's actually a smart strategic decision. Our energy is finite. By zeroing in on the apps with the most impact, I free up my mental space for other big projects I have going on. For example, building my startup for indie devs, or maybe growing this YouTube channel. Sure, it's tempting to test out this new amazing app idea. I miss those days too, but the truth is that splitting your attention into too many areas eventually leads to burnout. By chunking tasks into quarters, I will make sure I won't burn out along the way, and it will maintain the same productivity level across the whole year. So pick apps or projects that bring maximum impact or joy and focus on those. Plan quarterly, break the year into quarters to avoid massive burnout, and lastly, protect your future self. Less is truly more. It keeps you sane and also lets you excel at things you are best in. But there's one last thing that can make or break all these efforts. That's my blueprint for 2025. A year of productivity without the meltdown. But here is something I didn't emphasize earlier. The biggest battle isn't even the system. It's about turning your productivity into actual wins. And that's actually a whole different game. Click on this video when I share exactly how I set up goals for 2025 so you can actually achieve them without losing your mind along the way. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. I'll see you there. Bye.